Hey there, this is Seth from retipster.com, and in this video we're going to talk about what an appraisal is. So in the real estate world, an appraisal is an unbiased assessment of what a property's fair market value is, put together by a licensed professional known as an appraiser. An appraisal plays a very important part in a real estate transaction, especially when financing is involved. Lenders rely on the appraisal report to understand what the value of their collateral is, which also helps educate them on how high their loan amount should be so they don't exceed their loan-to-value ratio, which essentially helps lenders make sure they're not overextending the loan amount and lending too much based on how much the property is actually worth. Insurance companies also rely on the appraisal to determine the proper amount of insurance coverage. Even local taxing authorities can use the appraisal to help determine the proper amount of property taxes each year. Real estate investors also need to understand what a property's fair market value is, and an appraisal is one helpful way, though not the only way, to determine what that number most likely is. Now, part of what makes real estate such an interesting type of investment is that fair market value is kind of a subjective number. Depending on who you ask and what data you look at, a property may be worth more in one person's eyes as opposed to another. So as you might imagine, there's more than one way to determine what the fair market value of a property actually is. And professional appraisers typically use one or more of three different approaches to do this. And it kind of depends on the property type, the property use, and a number of other factors. So the first approach that is commonly used to figure out this number is called the sales comparison approach. And this approach determines the value of a property by comparing it with other similar properties in the near vicinity that have sold recently, usually within the past 6 to 12 months. Though depending on the situation and if there just aren't that many comparables available, it doesn't necessarily have to fall within that precise timeline. With the sales comparison approach, there's a fair amount of subjectivity at work because no two properties are exactly alike in every possible way. So the appraiser has to use a bit of discernment in deciding which properties they're going to use as proper comparables for the property they're trying to evaluate, and then make some adjustment to the property value based on location, age, the size, condition, terms and conditions of the sale. Say if the property was discounted because it was sold between family members or sold under duress, or any upgrades and enhancements that were made to the property, say things like landscaping, a new kitchen, new windows, solar panels, things like that. And the list goes on. There's all kinds of variations and differences that need to be accounted for when you're using comparables like this. The sales comparison approach usually requires at least 3 to 4 similar comparables, or comps for short, for the most accurate appraisal, and usually extra weight is given to properties that require the fewest adjustments and are most similar to the property being evaluated. The sales comparison approach is most commonly used in residential real estate for single-family homes. Now, the next approach is called the income approach, or the income capitalization approach. And this is used pretty frequently in commercial real estate appraisals because it's based on the property's historical income and rate of return that it's made for the investor that owns it. With the income approach, the property's value is essentially tied to the amount of income it generates. So generally speaking, the higher the income, the higher the value of the property. And then the third method that can be used to value a property is called the cost approach. And appraisers will typically use this method to appraise properties that have been improved by the construction or development of one or more buildings. With the cost approach, the value of the land and building minus depreciation are estimated separately and then added together to arrive at the appraised value. And the big assumption behind the cost approach is that the buyer is not going to pay more for the property than it would cost to rebuild it from scratch. Insurance companies often use the cost approach to determine the amount of replacement coverage that is needed for a property. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, be sure to give it a like and hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to check out the full article all about appraisals over at retipster.com, linked beneath this video. And by the way, have you seen this other video we have all about house hacking? You should totally check it out. We'll see you over there.